A long time ago in Persia, there lived two brothers. Their names were Ali Baba and Qasim. When their father died, in his will, he left his small fortune to both brothers, divided evenly. Ali Baba married a poor wife and lived a life selling and splitting wood, while Qasim married a rich wife and with her money became a rich merchant in the city. One day, while Ali Baba was cutting down trees in the forest, he heard the sound of many horses approaching. Worried that this large group would be a collection of robbers or bandits, Ali Baba left his mules that carried his wood and climbed a tree in order to hide from this group. It turned out that this was indeed a group of robbers, and they made their way to the side of the mountain, not far from where Ali Baba hid. Hiding in the trees, Ali Baba wondered what they were doing in front of the rocks at the side of the mountain. Watching, Ali Baba saw as their leader got off his horse and spoke the words "Open Sesame." With that, the rocks moved and revealed the entrance to the cave in the side of the mountain. Once the cave was open, the other robbers got off their horses and carried bags filled with gold into the cave. Once they were all inside, the rocks closed back up and the cave entrance was hidden. Ali Baba, who was still in the tree, was so fearful that he did not dare come out of his hiding spot. A long time had passed, and Ali Baba remained in hiding. Then, all of a sudden, the rocks began to move again, and the cave entrance was revealed. The group of robbers all left the cave, and the leader was the last one out. Once all the robbers mounted their horses, the leader turned to the cave and said, "Close, Sesame." With that, the rock formation closed, and with it, the cave entrance was hidden. After seeing that the cave was now well hidden, the leader of the robbers climbed onto his horse, and they followed him off into the distance. Once Ali Baba could no longer see them, and he was sure that they were not going to make a return, Ali Baba climbed down the tree and went to the rock formation. Curious as to what was in the cave, Ali Baba spoke the words "Open Sesame." As soon as he spoke the words, the rocks all moved out of the way, and the cave entrance was revealed. Ali Baba made his way into the cave. Once he was all the way inside, the entrance closed. To Ali Baba's surprise, the cave was well lit, and looking around, he could see that it was filled with tons of treasure. There was gold and diamonds, jewels, and more all around the cave. Ali Baba decided to take only what he could carry so the robbers would not notice anything was missing, filled his hands with gold and jewels, and with that he walked to the cave entrance. Standing at the entrance, Ali Baba said the words "Open Sesame," and with that the rocks moved out of the way and Ali Baba was free to leave. Once he was out of the cave, he turned back to it and said "Close, Sesame," and the cave closed. Ali Baba gathered his mules and hid the gold in his bag. Then he made his way back home. He put his mules away and carefully brought the bag of riches into the house. Ali Baba showed his wife what he had found. They were both very excited for their new income. Ali Baba's wife began to count it, but every time she tried, she would end up losing count. There was so much of it. Ali Baba decided that the best thing they could do would be to bury it so no one could come and steal it. Ali Baba's wife told him that they should know the exact amount that they have. So while Ali Baba was digging the hole for the riches, his wife went to his brother's home. There, Ali Baba's wife told Qasim's wife that Ali Baba had brought home some grain and they needed a scale to see how much there was. Qasim's wife told her that she would go and get the scale for them and it would take a moment. Qasim's wife, however, was very curious as to what grain Ali Baba had bought. She knew that they were very poor. Qasim's wife decided to put a small amount of glue at the bottom of the scale tray. With that, Qasim's wife came back to the door and gave Ali Baba's wife the scale. Immediately, Ali Baba's wife returned home and weighed the gold. She took note of the weight, and with that Ali Baba took the gold, and in the hole he dug, he covered it up. What they didn't know was that a small piece of gold lay stuck on the scale tray because of the glue Qasim's wife placed there. Wanting to stay on good terms with Qasim and his wife, Ali Baba's wife returned the scale that day to the Kasim's. Once Ali Baba's wife left, Kasim's wife looked at the scale to see what grains were left. To her shock, she saw that it was a piece of gold. Kasim's wife was enraged and jealous that Ali Baba had some riches, even though Kasim and her had always had money. Once Kasim came home from the bank, he was greeted by his angry wife. She told him that his poor brother was not as poor as they thought, that while Kasim counts his money, Ali Baba has so much money that he has to weigh it in order to know how much he has. Kasim didn't know what his wife was talking about, so she showed him the piece of gold that came from the scale and told him the whole story. Kasim was also jealous and went to go confront Ali Baba. Kasim never treated Ali Baba with much respect or regard, even though he was his brother. So when Kasim arrived at Ali Baba's house, he accused Ali Baba of lying to him this whole time and pretending to be poor when he was really rich. Then Kasim showed Ali Baba the gold piece that had been stuck to the scale. Ali Baba told his brother about how he had gotten the treasure, about the robbers, and about the cave. Kasim, hearing all of this, began to grow very greedy. Kasim went on to threaten Ali Baba that if he didn't tell him where the cave was, he would report him and he would be put in jail and all his riches would be taken away from him. Ali Baba, who was going to tell his brother the location and password anyway, continued to tell Kasim where the cave was. Ali Baba told him that he would have to say "Open Sesame" to open the cave and "Close Sesame" to close it. Kasim left Ali Baba's house and returned to his own. The next day in the morning, before the sun rose, Kasim left his house and went to the cave Ali Baba told him about. Kasim brought several mules, all holding several empty baskets. Kasim wanted to take out as much treasure as he could. Once Kasim found the location, he spoke the words "Open Sesame," and the rock formation began to move and revealed the cave entrance. Kasim entered the cave, and the rock formation closed behind him. Kasim was overwhelmed with all the jewels and gold, and spent his time stuffing his bags with as much treasure as he could. Once all Kasim's baskets were full, he went to leave the cave, but the entrance was closed. In his excitement, he had forgotten the name of the grain he was supposed to say in order to exit the cave. He tried saying "open wheat," "open barley." He tried everything that he could think of, but he couldn't remember "open sesame." By now it was midday, and the robbers were riding their horses back to their cave. The robbers saw Kasim's horses, that they were standing in front of their closed cave, and they knew that someone must be in there. Kasim, hearing the robbers' horses approach, began to get worried and decided that he would make a quick run for it once the cave opened in order to save his life. The robbers got off their horses and drew their swords and waited. Then the leader went to the cave and said the words "Open Sesame," and the rock moved out of the way. Kasim came running out of the cave and into the swords of the robbers and was killed instantly. It turned out that even though Ali Baba had only taken a little of the treasure, the robbers still noticed. They knew that this Kasim intruder must not have been the one who learned the secret of the cave, or he would have been able to escape. So the robbers decided to cut Kasim's body into 5 pieces. They placed his body in the cave, one arm and one leg on one side, and the other arm and the other leg on the other. Then they placed Kasim's head on a spike and placed it at the center of the cave. They knew that whoever Kasim's accomplice was would be terrified to see this, and they hoped it would prevent that person from ever coming back into their cave again. Once the robbers were finished with Kasim's body, they left the cave, closing it behind them, and rode off into the distance. Sunset had come, and Kasim's wife grew anxious. She did not know where Kasim had gone so early in the morning, but she knew that it had something to do with Ali Baba's gold. When she could not take the unknown any longer, she went to Ali Baba's home, and once there, begged Ali Baba to tell her where her husband went. Ali Baba told Kasim's wife that he had gone in search of treasure, and that he must be hiding out in the forest, waiting for the nightfall, in order to return to his house undetected. Ali Baba told her that she must not worry, that Cassim would probably return at midnight. Cassim's wife, a little relieved but still worried, returned to her home. She waited in bed, but could not sleep. She kept going over in her mind how it was her fault for spying on Ali Baba, that this whole ordeal might have never happened, if she would just let things be. Midnight came, and still Cassim did not return. She waited all night, and once morning came, Cassim's wife knew that Cassim had not made it. She ran to Ali Baba's home and told him that Cassim never returned. Once Ali Baba heard this, he feared the worst, and took his mules that were carrying wood to the hidden cave. Once Ali Baba was outside the cave, he grew more worried. At the base of the rocks in front of the entrance, he found blood on the ground. Ali Baba, expecting the worst, told the words, "Open sesame," to the cave. With that, the rocks began to move, and the entrance to the cave was revealed. In the entrance, to Ali Baba's horror, was Cassim's body, split into pieces. Ali Baba wasted no time and gathered Cassim's body. Looking around, Ali Baba found some rugs and hid Cassim's body inside it, then loaded it into the mules. Ali Baba hid the rugs under his wood piles so the body would not be found. Then Ali Baba went back into the cave and took out 2 baskets of gold, also hiding that under another pile of wood. With that, Ali Baba left the cave with the 2 mules carrying the 2 piles of wood with the hidden packages. Ali Baba stopped at his home first and gave the mule with the gold to his wife so she may hide them. Then Ali Baba made his way to Cassim's house. Once he arrived at Cassim's house, he told Cassim's wife that Cassim was dead. Then he turned to Cassim's servant, who was very smart, and told her that the body was in the rugs he had brought. The servant's name was Morgana, and Ali Baba told her that she must come up with a plan to explain Cassim's death and make it look like he died of natural causes. Morgana came up with a plan overnight. The next day she went into the apothecary with tears in her eyes and asked for a special compound for her master Cassim. The apothecary knew that this compound was for the most deadly of sicknesses and was concerned for Cassim. Morgana told the apothecary that it was true Cassim was very sick. The apothecary gave Morgana the compound, and Morgana went back home. The next day, Morgana made her way back to the apothecary, again crying. This time, she asked for an herb that was given to people who were close to death in order to ease their pain. The apothecary gave the herb to Morgana. The apothecary knew that this must mean that Cassim was dying from a deadly sickness. The next day, Morgana announced to the city that Cassim had died and that they would begin the burial process. The people were not surprised because rumors had been going around from the apothecary that Cassim was very close to death. Later that day, Morgana went to the cobbler and asked him if she paid him 3 gold coins, would he come with her blindfolded to sew something for her. The cobbler told her that he would do so. So Morgana gave him the 2 gold coins and told him that he would get the 3rd when he was finished. Morgana told him to gather his sewing gear, and once he had, she blindfolded the cobbler. Morgana led the cobbler to the Cassim's house and took him inside the room where Cassim's body was. Morgana took the blindfold off and told the cobbler to sew the arms, legs, and head back to the body. The cobbler, not knowing whose body this was, did what he was told, and once he was finished, Morgana gave him the 3rd coin. Morgana then blindfolded the cobbler and took him back to his home. Once she brought him back, she stayed and watched the cobbler to make sure he went back into his house and did not attempt to follow her. With that done, Morgana went back to Cassim's home and prepared the burial incense and washed and dressed Cassim's body. The next day, Cassim's body was taken to the mosque and the burial service began. The attendants began to prepare Kasim's body, but Morgana told them that she already had done it. With that, the prayers began, and Ali Baba and his wife arrived at the mosque, crying at the loss of their brother. Kasim's wife stayed at home in mourning, and the people of the city came to pay their respects. No one suspected anything. Everyone thought Kasim had died of natural causes. It was agreed that Ali Baba and his wife would move into Kasim's house, and Kasim's wife would continue to live with them. Ali Baba's son was put in charge of Kasim's merchant business. For a time, everything was peaceful. The robbers returned to the cave, and to their surprise, they found that Kasim's body was missing. Not only that, but a few more bags of gold were also missing. The robbers knew that this was a problem. There was still somewhere out in the world who knew their secret cave. That person could alert the authorities at any time, or worst, steal all the treasure they had captured. The captain of the robbers told them that this task would be the most important thing they do. One volunteer must go out and find the person who still knows of the cave. The captain continued by saying that this task was so important that if for any reason the volunteer failed, they would be killed. Then the captain asked if there would be anyone up for the mission, and one robber instantly volunteered. The robbers all cheered and helped create a disguise for this volunteer. The volunteer made his way into the city in the early morning. While looking around, he saw that the only shop that was open was the shop of the cobbler. The volunteer went inside and saw the old cobbler working away. The volunteer told the cobbler that he was very old and wondered if the cobbler's eyes were still good enough for sewing. The cobbler replied that he was indeed old, but he still had very good eyes. The cobbler went on to say that his skills were so good that he even sewed up a dead man not long ago. The volunteer knew that this must be the body of Kasim, so the volunteer asked him if he knew where he did this. The cobbler told him he didn't. He was blindfolded on the way there and had no idea where the house was. He also was blindfolded on the way back. The volunteer took out 2 gold coins and gave them to the cobbler, and asked him if he didn't mind being blindfolded again. He must remember a little from the path he took. The cobbler, looking at the 2 gold coins, thought that this would be easy money, so without hesitation, the cobbler agreed to try. But the cobbler warned that he might not be able to get to the exact place. The cobbler and the volunteer made it throughout the city. The cobbler blindfolded, leading the way for the volunteer robber. They traveled for some time until the cobbler came to a stop. The cobbler told the volunteer that this must be the spot. The robber took out a piece of chalk and marked the door, then took off the robber's blindfold and thanked him for his work. With that, the cobbler went home. This was indeed the new home of Ali Baba, and the robber was successful in finding it. The volunteer returned to the cave where all the other robbers and the captain were. The volunteer told the story of how he found the cobbler who had sewn up a dead man, who must have been the intruder, and he told them that he found the house where he thinks the accomplice was, and that he marked it with a piece of chalk. All the other robbers were happy, and they came up with a plan to leave the next day in small groups and go into the city. Their plan was to kill this accomplice without being discovered. When Morgana came home from her errands she was running, she noticed the chalk mark on the door. She knew this must be a bad sign, and someone was intending to do something bad to her new master, Ali Baba. Morgana then went to look for a piece of chalk, and she went and marked the 5 houses to the left and 5 houses to the right, with the same mark in the same place on the door. With that, Morgana went back to Ali Baba's home. The next day, the robbers made it into the city. They found the area where Ali Baba's house was, and were about to go in to attack until the captain noticed that there was a chalk mark on the house next to Ali Baba's. Confused, the robbers went to look at the other houses, and to their surprise, there were 10 houses, all with the same chalk mark on the door. They turned and asked the volunteer if he could remember which house it was, and the volunteer was so worried and confused that he could not remember which house the cobbler pointed out to him. The robbers all left the city in small groups and returned to the cave. There, the volunteer explained that he only marked one house and that he had no idea how the other marks were made. The captain, not happy, told the volunteer while he did learn a lot, he still failed in his task. With that, the first volunteer was killed. The captain to the rest of the robbers explained the importance of his mission, and again he asked if there would be anyone who would volunteer to find the accomplice. It wasn't long before another robber volunteered. The next morning the second volunteer went out and found the cobbler. Again the cobbler guided the second volunteer to the house of Ali Baba. The second volunteer, thinking he was clever, marked the house again, but this time with a red piece of chalk. Once the job was done, the second volunteer returned back to the cave and told the other robbers and the captain that it was done. Again, the captain decided that they would leave in the morning to go kill this accomplice to Cassim. That night, Morgana came to the home of Ali Baba, and she found the red mark on the door. She knew that the person who left it had no good intentions. It took her some time, but she was able to find a red piece of chalk, and like before, she went up and down the street, marking each door, before returning to Ali Baba's home. The next morning, the robbers came and met at Ali Baba's home. Again they noticed that all the doors on the street had been marked with red chalk. Again, the second volunteer could not identify the house by memory, so they all returned back to the cave, and the second volunteer was killed for his failure. The captain, who now saw that his gang of robbers were not the brightest, was sure if he continued letting them volunteer, they would all end up killed or failing. With that, the captain told the group of robbers that he himself would go and find the accomplice to Cassim, and they would kill him. The captain went into the city and found the cobbler. Again, the cobbler was able to show the house of Ali Baba. This time, however, instead of marking the door or any other part of the house, the captain stood there and took in as many details as he could. The captain memorized the house until he was sure he could identify it later. Once he was sure he had it all memorized, he made his way back to the cave where the other robbers were waiting for him. The captain told the robbers in the cave that he found the house and that he had a lot of work to do. The captain came up with a plan. They bought 40 mules with 39 barrels used to carry oil. However, one of the barrels was filled with oil, all the others were empty. The captain told the robbers that they had to get into the barrels and not make a sound. By this time, the sun was setting, and the captain, who had disguised himself as an oil merchant, made his way to Ali Baba's house with a pack of horses with oil barrels. Once at the house, the captain got off his horse and knocked at the door. Ali Baba opened the door, and the captain explained that he meant to get into the city earlier, but he was delayed, and was wondering if he could spare some lodging for the night. The captain explained that he would be gone first thing in the morning. Ali Baba decided to let the captain in disguise stay in his house. The captain parked the mules with the barrels filled with robbers in the yard. Then, when no one was around, went and opened the lid to each barrel and told the robber that he would throw rocks at the barrel when it was time to attack. Ali Baba told Morgana that he planned to go to the baths in the morning, and when he returned he wanted to have some soup for breakfast. Morgana went and told the cook Abdallah that they needed to have some soup prepared for the morning. By this time, night had fallen. Morgana was making her way back to the room when her lamp blew out. This was the last lamp in the house, and when Morgana looked inside, she saw that it blew out because it was out of oil. It so happened that the house was also out of oil, so Morgana decided that she would go and take some oil from the oil merchant. She made her way to the barrels, and as she grew close to open a lid, a voice came from the barrel. It was one of the robbers who heard Morgana walking to him. However, this robber thought that it was the captain and asked if it was time to attack. Morgana, thinking fast, disguised her voice and told the robber that it was not time. She went to each barrel, and each robber asked if it was time. Each time she replied that it was not time yet. When she got to the last barrel, she found that it was indeed a barrel full of oil. She took some oil for the lamp, and then decided to take the whole barrel. Morgana made it to the kitchen and put a large pot on the stove. She set the stove fire to as hot as possible, then poured the oil into the pot. It wasn't long before the oil began to boil, and with the smaller pot, she took parts of the boiling oil back outside where the other barrels were. Once outside, she dumped the boiling oil into the barrel with a robber in it, and the robber died instantly. Morgana made the trip back and forth with boiling oil and dumping it into each and every barrel with the robber in it until they were all dead. Once they were all dead, Morgana went back to her room and went to sleep. Once it was deep into the night, the captain looked out his window and began to throw rocks out onto the barrels. To his surprise, none of the robbers got out of the barrels. Angry, the captain snuck out of his room and went outside to see the barrels and asked the robbers why they did not get out. To the captain's horror, he found that the first barrel he checked had a dead robber in it. The captain went and checked each barrel and found that all his robbers had been killed. The captain knew that he had been found out. The captain then ran off in the night, leaving behind everything. The next day, Ali Baba made his way to the baths, and once he returned, he was surprised to see that the mules with oil were still there. Ali Baba asked Morgana why the oil merchant had not left, and that's when Morgana told him the whole story. Morgana told Ali Baba how there had been marks placed on the door, and her method for distraction. Then Morgana told Ali Baba how she went to look for some oil and found the robbers in the barrel. Morgana then took Ali Baba and showed him all the dead robbers. Ali Baba was so happy with all that Morgana had done to save his family and himself that he freed her on the spot and told her that he would continue to pay her in thanks for all she did. Morgana and Abdallah spent the rest of the day digging a trench and placed all the robbers into the ground. With that, all the robbers had been hidden. Again, some time had passed, but the captain still wanted to kill Ali Baba. The captain came up with a new plan and created a fake name and a new disguise, and made his way back into the city. The captain set up shop as a merchant, and for a time did very well. By accident, the captain became friends with Ali Baba's son, who was still running Qasim's old shop. Once the captain found out his new friend's father was Ali Baba, the captain became even more friendlier to the son. One day the captain came to Ali Baba's son and told him that he was having repairs made to his house and was wondering if he could spend the night at his house. Ali Baba's son replied that he could not because he had no extra space. The son continued on to say that he thought the captain could stay at his father's house. The captain was overjoyed with this, and that night, once all the shops had closed, the son and the captain made their way back to Ali Baba's house. The son explained the situation to Ali Baba, and Ali Baba was very happy to have his son's friends stay over. They all began to talk, and Ali Baba asked the captain in disguise if he wanted some dinner. The captain replied that he would, but asked that there be no salt in the meat or the bread. Ali Baba went into the kitchen and told Morgana the request, and she and Abdallah began to create the meal. It bothered Morgana that she received a request to create a meal with no salt. So she went to peek to see who was staying over. She peeked into the room and she recognized the captain immediately and knew that he was there to kill Ali Baba. Morgana and Abdallah brought out the meal and told Ali Baba that she would treat them to a dance performance in order to entertain their new guest. Once Ali Baba and the others finished their meal, Morgana came out dressed as a dancer. She danced around the sun and Ali Baba. Then she pulled out a hat and a small dagger. She would dance around, pointing the dagger at herself, then at Ali Baba. Then with the other hand, she held the hat. Laughing, Ali Baba placed a coin in the hat. Morgana repeated this with the sun, pointing the dagger at herself, then pointing it at the sun. Once the hat came to the sun, he too placed a coin in the hat. The captain, in preparation, pulled out his coin purse to place a coin in the hat. Once Morgana came around to him, she pointed the dagger at herself, and then turned the blade and thrust it into the heart of the unsuspecting captain. Ali Baba and his son were horrified at what had happened. Then Morgana revealed the disguise of the captain, and Ali Baba knew that Morgana had saved their lives again. Ali Baba told Morgana that she had continued to save their lives, and that they could think of no better honor than adding her to the family. Ali Baba told his son that he must marry Morgana, which Morgana and the son were happy with. More time had passed, and Ali Baba kept an eye out for any more robbers. Once he felt it was safe, he returned to the cave. He went inside and found that the captain must have been the last one there, because nothing else had been disturbed in a long time. Ali Baba loaded his mules with some treasure, only taking what he needed. It wasn't until Ali Baba was an old man that he took his son to the cave and taught him the secret word to open the cave. Generation after generation from Ali Baba's family were taught the safe word, and they all lived happily for the rest of their days.